Hi, I'm Ranger Tim, and welcome to Fresh Pond, the City of Cambridge's active drinking water supply. The Cambridge Water Department maintains several habitats that act as living filters, keeping pollution out of our drinking water supply. Today we're going to follow the life of a magnificent animal that depends on one of these habitat types, the meadow. There are small meadows hiding all around Fresh Pond Reservation. Let's go check them out. In a 2¼ mile trip around the reservoir, you'll encounter a few large meadows that you can explore. The Lusitania Meadow, Butterfly Meadow, and the Weir Meadow. You will also notice many smaller meadows that pepper the landscape of this reservation. A meadow is a type of field habitat that supports non-woody plants, like flowers, herbs, and grasses. Walking by them, you can enjoy an ever-changing assortment of flowers that change with the seasons. For those that look even closer, you'll notice that many of the small meadows are between you and water. Over 118,000 people depend on this water. We want the water to go into the city, not for the city to go into the water. Meadows are also known to drink a lot of water, and that is why they are our first line of defense against runoff pollutants such as salts and oils. When you admire their beauty, just remember that they're hard at work for the residents of Cambridge. One place you can see a small meadow in action is at our Kingsley Park. Kingsley's rolling landscape attracts all manner of activity throughout the year. At the bottom is a man-made meadow that has an important job. Without this meadow, we would only see a mud patch and a temporary stream introducing everything from people and dogs into the drinking water. Meadows like this have an aesthetic value, water quality value, and ecological value as well. Meadows are not only an effective way to maintain water quality and protect against flooding, they're also blooming with biodiversity. It's a micro-jungle out there for those willing to take a closer look. You may be familiar with the larger meadow animals like the white-tailed deer, browsing on leaves and buds, or the eastern cottontail, our resident rabbit. But on a closer look, you can find some smaller meadow inhabitants, like baby cottontails, called kittens, or the small short-tailed shrew, hunting for insects along the meadow floor. But you'll have to look even closer at the meadow to find the majority of living things that thrive in this wonderful ecosystem. It's time to explore the micro-jungle. Aphids are some of the smallest you'll see, living off of the juices that run through these diverse plants. Where there are aphids, you'll also see ladybugs, forever on the hunt for aphids, their favorite meadow meal. Dozens of cricket and grasshopper varieties call the meadow home, living alongside daddy longlegs, a type of arachnid called a harvestman. These insects come in all shapes, colors, and sizes, from the sleek predator body of a praying mantis, ready to use its camouflage to ambush its prey, to the many types of true bug, feeding on plants and seeds. Meadow insects also love to take to the skies, especially the pollinators. With an abundance of flowers from spring to fall, meadows are always full of nectar and pollen. Nectar and pollen are tasty meals for the bumblebee, and in visiting flowers, bees and other pollinators spread pollen from plant to plant, a key to helping these plants create seeds for the next year and for continuing the life cycle of a living meadow habitat. Honeybees collect pollen on their legs in saddlebags. This pollen needs to be partially digested later to create honey. Pollinators can come in all shapes and sizes, and when you stare out into a meadow, one of the most noticeable pollinators you can see is the butterfly, like these 5 cabbage whites fluttering by on the warm summer air. Butterflies like this black swallowtail live off of the sweet sugary nectar inside each flower. Vibrant flower petals and butterfly wings make meadow watching a rewarding activity. At Fresh Pond, you might be able to see an Aleutian longwing, silver-spotted skipper, eastern-tailed blue, or tiger swallowtail. However diverse the butterflies are, so are their younger caterpillar selves. Caterpillars range from hairy and funky to very simple, to even mimicking a ferocious snake to ward off predators. The life and struggles of a caterpillar is also an epic tale from the meadow. Our featured creature of the episode begins its life as a yellow, black, and white striped caterpillar in the meadows of Fresh Pond Reservation. They have a difficult 3 to 4 week journey before these caterpillars see their full potential as the magnificent Monarch Butterfly, showing its proud orange coloring across the city from flower to flower as it silently takes part of an age-old tradition.
Monarch butterflies are iconic and beautiful insects like no other insect in North America. Every year, these butterflies complete the largest insect migration in the whole continent or even hemisphere, gracing most of the United States with their delicate beauty. This migration is also known as one of the most spectacular natural phenomena of the world because no single butterfly makes it the entire journey. It takes 4 generations for these insects to go up north and then back south for the winter.
Most monarchs spend their winters huddled together in the mountains of central Mexico. In the spring, they fly north, lay their eggs, and die. Each new generation flies further north until they reach the U.S.-Canada border in late summer. Then, the great-great-grandchildren of the original generation all fly back to Mexico, a place they've never been, and spend the winter all together, only to start the migration again in the spring. Exactly how they accomplish this is still being studied, but we do have an insight as to why they do this. The yearly pattern of this great migration coincides perfectly with the annual bloom of one plant in particular, milkweed. As this plant sprouts up across the continent, the monarchs rapidly have their young and grow their population. As it dies off in the cold weather of fall and winter, these butterflies retreat back to their ancestral homeland. Monarchs have a strong connection to the milkweed plant, and the secret to this connection is in its name. Milkweed is filled with a milky white sap made out of latex. This milky white sap is also toxic. The plant produces this in order to prevent animals from grazing upon its leaves. But the poison that protects this plant from being eaten is also the reason why monarchs desire it so much. As an insect that needs to fly across the country out in the open, monarchs don't have the luxury of being able to hide from the top predators of the meadow, birds. Especially when so many insect-eating birds have several hungry mouths of their own to feed each and every summer. The wings of the monarch butterfly are bright orange not to blend in with flowers, but to stand out as a warning. These wings tell birds that eating a monarch will make them very sick and could even kill a bird in poor health. Reliable protections for the most well-traveled insect of North America. But monarchs are not born poisonous. They need to make a great sacrifice in order to have this special ability. As a butterfly, they can drink nectar from any flower under the sun, but their caterpillars are not afforded the same freedom as the caterpillars of other butterflies and moths. Monarch caterpillars need to grow up on milkweed and milkweed alone. This challenge is placed on the shoulders of adult monarchs, who, when traveling around through the meadows and plains of the United States, need to find and identify milkweed plants before the end of their short lifespan of 2 to 6 weeks in order to keep the migration alive. By eating milkweed leaves, the toxins of the milkweed sap slowly build up in the body tissues of monarch caterpillars. The more milkweed these caterpillars eat, the more poisonous they become to predators, and caterpillars need to eat a lot. Having healthy amounts of milkweed is very necessary to having a stable population of monarchs. Luckily, here at Fresh Pond Reservation, we have 3 varieties of milkweed suitable for their caterpillars. Common milkweed. It grows in groups and stands 3 to 5 feet tall, has large rounded leaves, and needs to be in wet areas with direct sunlight. This type is very happy in the small meadow at Kingsley Park. Every summer, buds grow and bloom into pale pink flowers with a very pleasant, sweet aroma that travels on the wind. As the flowers wilt, seed pods grow in their place. These seed pods will grow larger and open up in the fall, allowing milkweed seeds to blow in the wind and take up root for the next year. Butterfly milkweed is much smaller, only standing 1 to 2 feet tall. It still needs direct sunlight, but can withstand much drier meadows at Fresh Pond. Its flowers bloom orange, and the seed pods are thinner and more sleek. Just like common milkweed, the seeds blow in the wind each fall. Finally, we have swamp milkweed, best suited to shady and wet areas. Its flowers are a strong magenta. Its seed pods resemble that of butterfly milkweed. Finding these milkweed varieties in Cambridge is not always easy for the traveling monarch butterfly, especially when there is a dangerous imposter in our midst.
This is black swallowwort, an invasive vine from Europe that possesses the same chemical signature as our native milkweed. It loves to climb chain-link fences, and for a monarch butterfly, laying your eggs on this vine is a mistake that could be deadly to your caterpillars.
It's important to learn how to identify black swallowwort. It grows in vine form and has dark purple star-shaped flowers. Just like the native milkweeds, it grows pods that spread seeds by wind dispersal. Monarchs can sense that it has the correct milkweed toxins, but cannot sense that this European variety is much more potent, and the caterpillars will essentially overdose on the special ingredient that they need to grow up. Female monarchs can lay over 300 eggs, but will only lay 1 egg per milkweed plant that they encounter. Any eggs laid on black swallowwort will be doomed from the get-go. I watched this female carefully lay a dozen eggs on a dozen milkweed plants found in the butterfly meadow, and upon further inspection I could see the delicate eggs as small as the tip of a pencil glued tightly to each leaf. This is how all monarchs begin life, and in just as quick as 4 days' time our caterpillars will hatch and begin their journey.
Monarch butterflies need all the help that they can get in order to be their beautiful adult selves. That's why, every year, the Cambridge Water Department embarks on a raise and release project. Raising caterpillars not only helps boost our local populations, it helps to keep the Great Migration alive. Raising them in captivity allows us the opportunity to observe their growth and complete metamorphosis up close and personal.
After those 4 days, the eggs are only empty shells. And now we have newborn monarch caterpillars. At this stage, they're hardly bigger than their egg, and are at their most vulnerable. Without having ingested any milkweed toxins, they have no natural protection from predators. Many caterpillars don't make it past this stage because other insects, such as wasps and ants, are on the lookout for an easy meal. Monarch caterpillars go through a series of smaller changes before their metamorphosis into a butterfly. There are plenty of challenges to overcome during this time, and there are also challenges to raising them in captivity. In their first stage, the caterpillars are small enough to fit through the holes of a regular window screen. That's why our project begins in small containers with coffee filters to keep them safe, where they can enjoy freshly washed and sustainably harvested milkweed leaves every day. Hard work that pays off. When these caterpillars are on display, you can see them go through 5 distinct phases over the next 2 weeks. The 5 phases are called instars, and with each instar they increase in size. Their classic stripes become more pronounced, and their sensory tentacles, which act a lot like antennae, grow in length. In order to go from one instar to another, the caterpillars need to molt. This involves gluing their rear end to a surface and slowly walking out of their old skin. It takes some time for their protective exoskeleton on their head to harden after a molt. The skin of their old instar form is left behind and called an exuvia. They need to quickly get back to eating milkweed so that they can continue to progress through all 5 instars. Their stripes become noticeable around instar 3, and their tentacles become very noticeable during instars 4 and 5. Their appetites sharply increase during these instars as well. Monarchs only lay 1 egg per milkweed plant because of how much the caterpillars will need to eat to grow up. The more they eat, the more droppings they will create as well. Caterpillar droppings are called frass. The amount of work needed to care for the caterpillars increases. Frass needs to be cleared out from the cages multiple times a day, and they need to be fed multiple times a day as well. At their hungriest, each caterpillar can consume a whole milkweed leaf in hours. With a team of caterpillars in each cage, leaves need to be harvested and washed around the clock. At instar 5, their tentacles are long and can be moved around. And at the end of instar 5, their appetites all of a sudden stop. Their instincts then tell them to start exploring their surroundings. In the wild, this is the first time they leave their milkweed plants and start climbing trees and fence posts nearby. In captivity, this is when we see the caterpillars on the sides and tops of their cages. They need to seek out a suitable place for their next phase of life, something called the hanging jay. When a good location is found, they spin silk and attach themselves to a surface where they hang upside down for about 24 hours. Their bodies slowly become green tinted, and after a day, they undergo the first of 2 major transformations. It's time to molt again. Before they molt, their tentacles become limp and they pulse around, pulling their soft body parts out of their protective head and leg shells. Inside their instar 5 skin is not an instar 6 caterpillar, but something completely different. Moth caterpillars spend time spinning silk around their bodies in something called a cocoon, but butterfly caterpillars do not form a cocoon around their bodies. They'll form something called a chrysalis, and the chrysalis does not cover the caterpillar, but rather, it comes from within. When this caterpillar is ready, it will straighten out and begin to pulse more rapidly. Its new body, a bright green chrysalis, breaks through the skin at the head of the caterpillar. Now, this chrysalis needs to shuffle itself in a manner that accordions up the old caterpillar's skin toward its rear end, and then shake and wiggle around until the old skin falls to the ground beneath it. What's left of its caterpillar self is now an exuvia. The chrysalis hangs from the silk by a stem-like structure called a cremaster, and over the next few hours the chrysalis condenses and hardens into a shell. Sometimes a caterpillar picks a bad place to transform, and in captivity we can harmlessly move it by the cremaster so that it develops correctly in a hanging manner. The hardened chrysalis is emerald in color, forms beautiful golden studs, and remains like this for a week and a half. Our cages become filled with these precious gems, and this is the easiest stage to care for the monarchs. Although it may not look like they're doing much, a lot is going on under the surface. Near the end of the week and a half, the iconic markings of a monarch become visible and the chrysalis shell becomes clearer and clearer. Now there is only one more molt needed to achieve something called complete metamorphosis. Our monarchs exit their skin for the final time in their lives in a matter of seconds. Pushing and pushing, they triumphantly drop out of the chrysalis shell. This is their final molt, and the chrysalis shell is their final exuvia. They will need to hang on by the exuvia for the next few hours before they truly reach their butterfly potential. When newly emerged, they don't look quite like the monarch butterflies we know. They still have a fat caterpillar-like body and very small folded-up wings. They need to spend some time redistributing their bodily fluids. As they pump these fluids through their body, you can see with your very own eyes the caterpillar body becoming more and more dainty and butterfly-like. At the same time, their small wings expand to the classic large size we know and love. When the wings reach full size, they're soft and limp like a tissue. It takes a few hours for the wings to stiffen up like playing cards, and only then can they achieve the ability to fly. When they're able to move their wings, they expel whatever excess fluids they have, and then it's time to start understanding their new bodies. Their new feet are hooked, and now have taste buds. Their mouths no longer can bite. They are a long drinking straw called a proboscis, handy for reaching into deep flowers for sweet nectar. In captivity, we let them build up their strength by drinking the sweet sugary juices from fresh-cut fruit. They haven't had anything to eat for a week and a half. Also, it's only now we get to enjoy the structure of their wings. Butterfly wings are made of small iridescent scales that can withstand the rigors of flying across a continent. We can also tell male and female monarchs apart by their wings at this point. Their front forewings are identical. The difference lies in the back hind wings. Female monarchs have thick black veins that match the veins of the forewings. Male monarchs will have thinner veins on the hind wings, with a distinctive dot on each one, called scent sacs. By scent and by vision, butterflies seek out flowers and other butterflies in the wild. And when they've reached this stage, there's only one thing left to do in our Raise and Release project, and that is to release our head-started butterflies out into the world to boost their local populations and fulfill their great migration destiny. Depending on what time of year these monarchs are raised, they will either fly to Mexico or be the parents of the super generation that flies to Mexico. They may have received a head start, but this is just the beginning of their wild life and the struggles that brings.
To help monarch populations, you don't have to raise and release butterflies every year like we do. There are many ways that anyone can help the Great Migration stay alive.
Protecting monarchs needs to be a nationwide effort, because if at any point in the migration there is no milkweed, dangerous weather events, or extensive pesticide use, that particular pathway can stop dead in its tracks. Anyone can learn to identify milkweed and make moves to actively protect it. If you see milkweed growing wild, you can politely ask the property owner to avoid mowing or cutting these plants until the fall when seeds form. You can also give milkweed a helping hand. When the seed pods naturally open up in the fall, you can help spread the seeds in wet and sunny areas that it will grow. Wind-dispersed seeds don't need to be buried, just lightly covered up. They need to experience winter cold in order to sprout in the spring.
To help monarchs and all pollinators, you can participate in or start your own community garden for wildflowers.
Even if you don't have milkweed to help the caterpillars, monarchs still need to get their energy from flowers and their sweet nectar. This will help them take to the skies and cross the continent. You can also learn to identify black swallowwort and take action to curb its spread. Anyone can become a volunteer member of the Cambridge Pod Patrol by following these easy steps. All you need to do is simply grab a free dog waste removal bag when visiting Fresh Pond, and on your walk, begin picking the pods before they open up in the late summer. Each pod picked prevents dozens of new vines from sprouting. When your bag is full, remember to tie it off. These seeds can continue to develop after being picked and can take root in compost. This ensures that they won't go anywhere, and to be double sure, walk the bag to one of our many trash cans. Spread the word, not the vine.
Thanks for coming along with me through this journey at Fresh Pond Reservation. I hope you learned something new about the monarch butterfly. There are just a few things that I want you to remember. Monarchs need milkweed. Milkweed needs meadows. And meadows help keep our drinking water healthy and clean.